how long?
For 27 years.
For 27 years. And during that, and then after you were a pilot for Delta, you worked for Delta in operations, is that right?
Well, I was, during my career, I flew as a line pilot for about 9 years, and then was the Senior Vice President of Flight Operations for the last 12 years of my career.
Okay, so, and in that role, you were pretty active inside of Delta, as well as with outreach to the federal government in a variety of, in a capacity to the FAA.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I know you've been on the job for 4 months, but you weren't just airdropped into this job at FAA. You actually know what you're doing coming into the job. Is that right?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence, you've been at the FAA for about 9 years, even though in your new job you just started last year, 2018. But before that, you were active in Experimental Aircraft Association, a variety of things. You just weren't airdropped into your job last year. You actually know what you're doing into this new job, right?
Correct.
All right. So I think you should be proud of your credentials and not underplay them and the role that you play, both looking forward and in looking back. I wasn't in Congress when a lot of things passed in Congress, but I'm in my job and I'm responsible for those things. You're responsible for the things that happened before you got there, just as other people were, but you're responsible now for those things that happened before you got there.
Absolutely.
As well as you being responsible going forward.
Absolutely. The buck's, I mean, I'm responsible.
I'm glad we can agree on that. Also, I would note that the existing ODA program didn't exist in the 20s, although ODA in some form did exist back in the 20s. The existing one started in 2005, passed under an FAA law. So that's what we're dealing with now as well. Right. Not what it was in the 20s, what it is now. And it's very different than what it was. So I just want to really sort of establish some baseline here about what we're talking about. Not the 20s, not the fact that you're new to the job, because you're actually not all that new to the job. So, and given that, I want to ask you about some of the decisions that have been made at the FAA. You may not be able to answer them today, but you need to answer them. For instance, Boeing CEO Muhlenberg stated to us the FAA fully vetted the company's 2016 revised system safety assessment, but the Indonesian accident authorities found that the FAA's response was simply to accept that submission. So fully vetted versus simply accept, with a note indicating that that approval was delegated to Boeing. So that's what the Indonesian air authorities noted in their report. So is that the process? Is fully vetting, is all that means that Boeing gave it to the FAA and the FAA accepted that? And that's what fully vetting means?
Fully vetting, in my definition, doesn't mean that. I would defer to Mr. Lawrence on the technical details, but I would say that it's, from my understanding, is it's not unusual for design applicants to come in and ask for certain things to be delegated.
Mr. Lawrence?
So fully vetted would not just be a cursory review, and that is not what is done in the system. As we've talked about in the past, delegation is really used primarily in routine and well-understood areas, but it also relies on the data that were provided, and that is, has been mentioned earlier today, is an area that we are focusing on. If we don't have the right information, it won't result in the correct answers.
So the JADA report also found that MCAS certification deliverables were not adequately updated by Boeing to reflect the changes to the flight control system. We've sorted that out in the last hearing. At any time during the process, did the FAA notify Boeing that these documents were in fact insufficient? And if not, why not? I'm trying to get at gaps in the process we use to certify. That's what I'm getting at. But so, if not, why not?
There's, my understanding is the design change for MCAS, which is what I believe you're referring to, was not made evident to the aircraft evaluation group, which would be responsible really for looking at the operational implications of how the system was working. There may have been some conversations within either the flight test or technical area of the FAA. So I think what it indicates is this issue of fragmented communication and the fact that there was information out there, but it was difficult to put the whole picture together to make a sound decision. That's absolutely something that we need to address going forward.
Okay, I ran out of time. I have other questions, but I had to spend so much time bucking up your credentials to show that you are qualified to answer these questions for us today. And they don't all have to take, we need to get to the folks who made these decisions as well. But I have confidence that you have the credentials to answer these questions and help us. And also have confidence to find out where the gaps are and hold folks responsible for that as well. And I'll hold you responsible for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank the gentleman. Now, Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also want to acknowledge the representatives of those and their families who are lost in the tragedy and offer my condolences as well. We appreciate your attendance and advocacy here today. Mr. Dickinson, Administrator, we want to make sure that we have all the information so that we can trust the fidelity of the outcome of this when it finally is complete. In that vein,